What's up? It's a new episode of Metric. I'm Michael.
I'm Tim.
And I guess we're just going to pick up from wherever we ended up last week.
Yeah, so we ended last week with I was telling you a story about a UX colleague of mine who worked at PNC Bank, and they were trying to increase products and not for their small business loan users, and they were wondering why none of it was selling. And so when they actually conducted user interviews and research, they realized that none of the products that they were bringing to market, any of their users wanted. And so I think we started talking about this kind of duality of what do companies get out of products and what do users get out of them. Last time we spent a lot of time talking about Facebook, but so that may be a good place to start. But like, what is Facebook getting out of their service and what are users using it for?
Yeah, and we started off kind of like talking about how jobs to be done is at least a useful framework for trying to determine or trying to better align that product market fit, as opposed to ending up in a situation like your buddy who created or there was adjacent to a product that wasn't really made for anybody.
You also were talking a little bit, which I think you just briefly mentioned last time, the snafu that Facebook just went through on the news.
So I guess it's hard to pinpoint. Right now it's early February, but it seems like almost weekly or bi-weekly there's some sort of data breach or trust breach with regard to Facebook, right? It's just one of those things where I guess in this case what I referred to last time was this issue where Facebook had a research app that, in fact, I don't actually know all of the details, but somehow it got into hands of teenagers 13 plus, and it was a user research tool, and I believe they paid the folks who had that app maybe like $20 or $30 a month, which happened to give Facebook access to all of like the deep data streams in their phones, the messages and API calls made by other apps, their own IMs, things of that sort. And it's just the fact that like consistently ever since like Cambridge Analytica sometime mid last year, early last year, it seems like yesterday, but ever since then, Facebook is clearly signaling its lack of concern for user privacy.
Yeah, and I think Apple said that didn't Apple say that they were banning Facebook's research app because that market research app or whatever it was that was collecting users' personal information, it was paying users in exchange for their mobile data?
Yeah, it was violating some sort of Apple terms of service. It's hard to talk without talking out of turn because I don't recall all of the details. What I do recall is, that however you would chart or graph my opinion of Facebook as a user, my trust in Facebook, it would be a consistent downward slope, and it just kind of took a little bit of a negative spike this time last week.
I think if you look at some of these, so you are correct. It's like time moves like triple fast or something now. And it seems like all of this, if you think of like companies that are under the lens of, if you think of Facebook or Google or Uber, I'm reminded in the last year or two of all of these horrendous things that happened at Uber. And then basically how to nickel and dime and take advantage of it. It's like, okay, so all the taxi, I don't even know, it's probably 2 years now. And I don't know where we are in regards to this presidency or administration, but whenever the ban happened for certain travel bans on different countries, and the New York Taxi Union actually boycotted service to the airport in support of Uber's, just like, hey, we're gonna jack up. This is our perfect. Let's start
surge pricing.
We just hit gold. Woo! And it just makes you wonder. Like at some point, I think people really understand, unless it's much more dark and nefarious, I guess, but people pretty much understand what these companies are getting out of it. They understand that they're getting customer purchase data, and basically Facebook is getting this like mountain of like marketing data, right? That's for each person and what you'll buy. And then if you say something and it's picked up by your phone or your Messenger app, or you're texting it through Messenger or something like that, then like ads start appearing up, in different places, right? Alexa recording stuff, and then that retargeting, showing ads, kind of for things. And I think people have even tried to prove it, and that have successfully proved it.
I want to I don't know how we ended up getting on large tech company trust issues, but I like this topic. Are you that confident that people actually know what they're trading for these services?
So I would say for those who are adjacent to the tech community or software community, we probably definitely know. And just because we kind of do it probably ourselves to some degree, or use their services, or use our app developments, or working with their APIs or things like that. But that's a good point. I think that your average person who's just like, oh, I like Instagram because it's not as negative as Facebook, but you think that, oh, it's free, that's why I'm using it, but it's not free. It's collecting data from you, and it's showing you advertisements, and then it cross targets those advertisements. So maybe you're right. It'd be interesting to know like how many people don't know what big data is being mined, and then what is being kind of scraped from that and then used and being sold.
I kind of want to touch on this big data thing. Have you heard of Facebook described as, or Amazon or any of these, described as a data factory? Is that a term that's...
definitely Amazon, I think, is a data factory, 100%. I think Facebook is definitely, and I think a lot of people don't think about Google as being one.
Oh,
especially
certainly.
since Google basically is like, gives away cloud storage, gives away email, gives away their mobile operating system for it's their model is to give it away for free, but people don't think that, what they're selling is, so there is a part of Google, right, that it's just like this very pro-humanitarian part, right? So when you look at things like the solar project, where they're like, oh, we built this thing so you can see how much space is on the roof of your house, and it's this layer of Google Map that says like how much solar exposure you get, and then here's a company next to you that will install solar panels. That's cool. Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard of that. That's not just cool. That's incredibly cool.
It's called.
Wow.
I'd have to check it. It's either the Project Solar or like the Sunshine Project or something for Google. Project Sunroof is what it's called if you've never seen it. And Project Sunroof is you go and you just enter your physical address, and it gives you a Google map with a solar overlay, right? And so you can enter. It's kind of interesting because what they do are they're recognizing where your location is, what's your sun exposure, which they can tell auto magically with Google Maps or some stuff, and weather patterns, right? And then they put you in connection to, here's some local solar panel distributors who will install it for you, and here's the energy credit you would get from the US government. So it seems like, oh, Project Sunroof is great. And then, so I always have mixed feelings about Google on this, right? I'm like, definitely like Facebook evil, what I mean? Amazon's pretty evil. When you think of like Amazon in regards to diapers.com, I don't know if you ever saw what they did to diapers.com and
no, I have to know.
There. There's actually a really fantastic episode of Adam Ruins Everything specifically about this. If you don't know, have you ever watched Adam Ruins Everything?
Yes, I love that show. It's great.
So he has an episode that's basically like diapers.com was the number one place parents were going to buy diapers, and because they were cheap and they would ship to you really quick. And so Amazon is not in the business of making money. Amazon is the business of market dominance. They basically, like they do every other company, like Facebook does, they approach them and said, hey, we want to buy diaper.com because we want to sell them. And the company were just we're good. We don't really want to sell. We're fine with the profits that we have, and we don't really want to expand. We're kind of okay. And so they flooded the market with even cheaper diapers. And then no one was going to diaper.com anymore. And so then they go back to diaper.com. Like, I feel like Ebenezer Scrooge or some evil Koch brother caricature or something. And it was like, do you want to sell now? And they're like, I guess we have to. You're kind of killing us. And it's like, but we're only going to buy it for half of what we offered before.
Oh my God.
And so then they buy the company, and diaper.com, the brand, gets associated, and then they jack up the cost of the diapers. So anyways, the point being is that Facebook has done that to how many different companies. You can go to, there's a Wikipedia page devoted to like all the companies that Facebook has bought out. But I always have mixed feelings about Google because they feel so like they have all these really hearts, like lovey-dovey kind of feel-good kind of things, because like Project Sunroof, they have, is it Loom or Project Blimp?
Yeah.
To where they're testing like giving Wi-Fi to the world for free,
Right. It's like Blimp. It's Wi-Fi broadcasted by Blimp over developing parts of the world.
And which is beautiful, like when you think of that, right? There's that they are like we can keep a blimp up in the air for a month to 6 weeks. And then if inclement weather happens, we can rotate our pattern and lower the balloons through AI, and then they can respond to the weather. And so you will never have a breakup of service, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the begs the question, like what we're talking about, like what is Google getting out of this? It's obvious what the customer is getting out of it: free Gmail and free email and free cloud storage. And oh my God, I think everything I've worked on in the last 3 years has been in Google Drive because it's just the easiest way to work.
No, like all of our, proprietary document specs are in a private Google Drive. You know what? I think the reason I asked about the data factory is because I think what they get out of it ultimately is predictive power, right? The ability to. This sounds incredibly malicious, villainous even. The ability to predict the future in certain ways. So the idea of the data factory is just that, like, hey, like, no offense, but your personal data as Tim Broadwater isn't super valuable to someone like Facebook. They might be able to target a specific ad to you, but you're probably pretty darn good at resisting those ads. What it gets though is, like, it gets Tim's data, and it gets Michael's data, and it gets the data of 100,000 other people, and then it crunches it and it does something new, and it produces new data, new patterns from that like a primary level of data. And thus the data factory is, it takes all this raw data ore, and it turns it into data steel, and then it produces. Then it can use the data steel for its own means, or it can sell that. So for me, I think the predictive power is both terrifying and, like, a compelling explanation of, what is it _ company gets. Because Project Sunroof seems like something that a Googler with good intentions, knowing the Maps API well enough, could reasonably do by good intentions alone. But there's I looked up this list of mergers and acquisitions by Facebook Wikipedia page you mentioned, and there's some like really bizarre shit in here. They bought like a furniture startup and like other things of that sort, and the only reason I can think of them entering these verticals is because they had some indication, from what? Who knows? Perhaps from their data factory, that this was a good vertical to get into. And what's funny is, like, with this predictive power, it makes their next move to an individual almost unfathomable. And it may seem like random.
It's interesting because, I see Facebook pushing into, if you look at their last 3 or 4 different acquisitions, or the ones in the last year, Chain Space, Red Kicks, things like that, it's more into work collaboration and communication and work tools. And then Workplace by Facebook is kind of its own. I think, I'm not exactly sure what the service is, except from like communicating and collaborating across devices, and so is that.
I used it. Have you used like Microsoft has one as well? That itself was almost like a response to the introduction of Slack and kind of like the light that Slack shone on workplace and inter-workplace tools and the potential market there. Facebook Workplace is a chat room. It's a work siloed ecosystem with walls and video chat and docs and files. And if you look at all the different things that Facebook provides to, say, like a Facebook group, the ability to upload files, it has its own doc, like a kind of like Google Doc tool, which is actually pretty good. I stumbled onto it just the other day. It all accretes into this like workplace product that basically lets people use their Facebook accounts to connect with their employees. It is Facebook, but just like a workplace one, in the same way that Google has like the Google, what is it, the Google Suite, or the business suite or admin suite, in the same way that like workplace emails are technically Gmail with their own kind of branding on it. Something of that sort.
That's interesting because so 2 things there. One, kind of talking about, back to your comment about taking ore into steel, right? And you're thinking about, what I think of is, you're talking about where we were talking about the PNC Bank story or scenario where,
Right.
it's just like there's a disconnect between what our product is and we're just putting stuff out there and we're trying to inquire why people are buying it. The exact opposite, like Facebook is like, we are looking into the future, 5 years and 10 years, and we're trying to acquire and move into markets that we know and we're where we want to be and position ourselves, and how do we get there by acquisitions, instead of thinking of thinking of this ore as like, we have Michael's data and we have Tim's data and everyone's data, and for some reason there's a lot of communication either on Twitter or through Messenger or things that are happening that are like purchasing sports equipment or like doing something. And so just like, so why is this happening? Let's crunch that big data and distilling it to like steel. This is the indicator here that this one podcast or this one video or someone listened to, watch this Twitch TV, this is why this is occurring. And then we can see like this is happening in 25 to 42-year-olds who are in like rural whatever. And so the amount of data that they can actually compile from that, I mean, it is amazing, because then they can say like, okay, from this we can predict that this is the next like logical step, and this is something that we should buy and acquire and move into this direction. And it's kind of it's impressive, but it's also, so like you said, it's kind of gets a little scary.
It's also not 100% unrelatable, though. We may not have the computational power to do this through machine learning alone, but distill what it's doing. It's observational data. It's observing users and then drawing product-based conclusions from those observations, as opposed to having an idea for a feature and then seeking out confirmation bias to rationalize building that feature. So like last episode, we did kind of talk about how jobs to be done is, or can be, a tool to think orthogonally. The great, like, awesome example I used was this drill company, drill.com. I don't want to like.
Oh my god, I have that. I'm definitely gonna put that in right now.
But you can see that instead of like moving into a vertical that is drill adjacent, such as screwdriver.com, they might get into something like carpet or into furniture or something that is along the lines of the end job to be done for which people bought that drill, the perfect living room or something of that sort. You have this grin on your face. What is drill.com?
I mean, drill.com is being squatted right now, so if you want to buy you can totally buy drill.com, because there's literally nothing there except a resale.
It's like sold by like Pornhub.
Probably. I always feel like one word domains, like you always like, oh, I want fireball.com or like lightningbolt.com would be cool, or something like that, and it's always just like squatted, and it's going to be there for 10 years squatted upon, and no one's ever going to buy it.
I love these new TLDs though that allow you to have relatively like ridiculous ones. Apparently there's there's a .ld, and I tried so hard to get Scofie.ld, so it was just my last name.
Did you get it?
No, man, it's like $100 a year.
My gosh.
It's just one of those things that, yeah, I use hover.com just to watch that stuff. For the record, if anyone wants that, I just let usertranscripts.com expire. Tim, I think this was a project that you and I daydreamed about, or we were just shooting the shit, and I bought the domain like years ago.
For what?
It's usertranscripts.com. I think the idea was that, hey, we have all of this, like, I don't know what it was. It's basically like, hey, if you have a user transcript from an interview you conduct, like, certainly just post it publicly.
Yeah.
And it was just going to be like a collection of user transcripts. Well, that didn't get off the ground too well, but I have all sorts of like little domains like that, because
I think I'm the same way, because I have like toyed around with a children's book, and so I got a domain for it. And then it's like, oh, I'm doing my graduate thesis, I got a domain for it. And then it's like, oh, I have this idea for UX quackery, I'll get a domain name for it. And so but my grandmother passed away a couple years ago, and like when we were going through her house to sell, she had like all of these like boxes of like recipes, and I was like, so I got a domain name, just like one day I'm gonna put all these recipes and transcribe them into this great site, and it never, of course, happened. Right? I still have all the recipes, of course, but it's like I don't know. I have a friend who like in 2015 when the election was happening,
Yeah.
bought Trumpocalypse.com.
Oh no.
But he got Trumpocalypse.se. So it says Trumpocalypse, right?
Yeah.
In one word, but it has the .se ending. And I told him, like, after he got elected, I was like, oh my God, we have to do some really cool API here. We have to pull in some news feed and pull in some of this Twitter feed and do something that's just like amazing. I think if you go there now, it's a martial arts studio. Because he does martial arts and his, you know what I mean? And then his kids do martial arts. So I'm just like, I think he's like, might as well use it or lose it. Or I don't know if it's a redirect or what, but yeah, it's a martial arts studio.
It's some sort of like high level commentary.
I guess.
Like, Trump brings us all to violence.
I guess, apparently.
That was a good tangent. I have like some really good domains. I might keep usertranscripts.com.
It would be cool to like funny ones, right? Like if it was something that was like Urban Dictionary, like people upvote like on the best or funniest ones or something.
So I own shitmichaelsays.com.
Oh, nice.
And I have like other things. I have some like great ideas that I should like tell you afterward, just so I can share them. I know they're never going to come to fruition, but I don't want to post them into the public. But like I got, I was a librarian. I guess I still am. I have ylibraries.com, but usertranscripts.com is expiring soon. And this is the first, I don't actually know if I'm going to be able to go through with it, but this is the first domain in years on which I deliberately turned auto renew off like last week. I'm like, look, I just got to let go.
I think that's the thing, like with my grandmother's website and her recipes, like after the second or third year of renewing it, I'm just like, I'm never going to do it.
I need to spark joy. I watched Marie Kondo's TV show on Netflix. And I need to spark joy on this horde of domains, my shelf of domains.
I have a very funny story, actually, that is timely as well.
Please.
Because recently here, we had Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
And
why did you stress here? Does Groundhog's Day not exist for me?
Oh, no. So there are multiple groundhogs across the country. And so everyone only thinks of, kind of Punxsutawney Phil. But there's actually French Creek Freddie, who's the West Virginia groundhog, and he's more accurate. No. French Creek Freddie is more accurate weather for West Virginia. And you can Google French Creek Freddie. He's the West Virginia groundhog. And there are more. It's not just Punxsutawney Phil, right? And so
it makes sense to have like regional ones, but
exactly. Yeah. And so several years ago, I got together with some devs and some UX people, and we're like, we have this great idea. And so we got a Google Hangout, and we were talking, and basically it was like, what if we could make a website that the user goes to it, and all they do is enter their zip code, and it tells them if the groundhog, what the percentage of accuracy of their weather prediction was against actual weather. And so we were like, groundhogslie.com. And so we reserved groundhogslie.com. And then we started the project, and we have like mock-ups, and we built the site and everything with some friends. And then when we started to actually look at data, we're like, okay, so there's a spreadsheet for like, there's actually no actual data source for Punxsutawney Phil, right? It's just like you would have to manually maintain a database each year and just say like if it's 6 more weeks of winter or whatever. And then you could look at NOAA for weather data, but they don't do API. You'd have to just get like a JSON or a dump every year, updated each year. And then so we started getting to this point where we're like, okay, so when is Groundhog's Day? And we look for 6 weeks after that. So we have to start like putting the data in a way to where like, how do we determine of 6 weeks, which is 7 times 6 days, of weather, like what's the percentage of winter? Is it 50% or 60%? And then like, okay, then we have to compare that value to whatever is in the other database, French Creek Freddie. And then we say, okay, he was inaccurate like 25% of the time, and then show a funny GIF or meme of like an evil groundhog laughing, like, or something. And so, and then you, of course, would just share that, like on social media, Twitter, Facebook, or something. And so we kind of fell down at the data scientist point where we're like, we don't know how to data science this at all, because there are data scientists in the world who I respect completely that they can do this kind of stuff, and we did not have the minds to do it. But yeah, it was talking about a shelf of domain names and cool intentions for projects that never get to fruition. That was one of the ones that's happened. And then every year, like 2 weeks before Groundhog's Day, there's always like a sad, desperate, hey guys, do you want to try this again and see if we can get it up by Groundhog's Day? And it never happened.
Wow, I don't even know what to say. That's wow. I think you just ended the episode right there.
Projects that never get off of have great intentions but never actually get off the ground.
Did you guys Did you guys have a name for that service?
It was groundhogslie.com.
Perfect.
And so groundhogslie.com was going to be this great thing, and basically it was like, you know, we didn't have the skill sets in the team, and we didn't know a data scientist, and we could pull the data, but we didn't know how to concatenate it, or with big data, like how to compare it.
Word.
It's kind of funny, like thinking about, like, you know, what did you say, Mike? The shit that Mike says.com or whatever?
Shitmichaelsays.com. Yeah.
What was your thought for there? What was it going to be?
Well, let me open Facebook and I'll tell you. So, I don't know. I say a lot of shit. And like at some point, my girlfriend at the time, Nayeli, and now my wife, she started quoting me. Hashtag shit Michael says. And then other friends started doing the same. It kind of like picked up. So I just went into Facebook and I typed in shit Michael says. This might be only if like you're a friend or whatever, which you are, so you might be able to see this.
Okay.
But I have a lot of shit. And so I wanted to basically drop all of these as like, just kind of have like a quote generator, so that shit Michael says, every time you visited shitmichaelsays.com, it was just like it's just things that I've said. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna find one. Oh, okay. So sometimes I post ones I'm proud of. This one is the most recent, posted on January 30th by Nayeli. Michael, quote, we're not talking, so I forget what we were talking about it, but at some point I said, look, we're not talking about it. We're not that close yet, Nayeli. What do you mean? I'm your wife. Yeah, you got a long way to go. Hashtag shit Michael says.
Okay.
It's like... So someone else, January 19th, my friend Carmen, do you smell toast? Because if you don't, I'm having a stroke. Shit, Michael says.
So this is just stuff you put on Facebook?
This is stuff other people put on Facebook that I say at the time. So like my friends,
like in real life, they heard you say something and they put it up. Okay. Nice.
Like here's one. Nayeli, Michael puts his hand on my cheek and says, "Aw, your little head fits into the palm of my hand, ... so I can lift it above my enemies, rah!" It's like,
oh my god, that's fantastic.
So just the fact that, like, basically what happens, so, like, over the last few years, like, I've, with Curtis, like, you know, my friends sort of bought into it, and I have this record of just, like, silly things, like I say, in peaks of, like, being manic. Well, I should collect these, and this will be my legacy. If there's nothing else that I leave behind, you know, there will be this random quote generator. But of course I never did it. I own the domain. But this one actually feels like something I should do, because I have the content. I just need to drop it into like a JSON file and just load a random one. It doesn't even have to look good.
Yeah, I think I have something similar to where, like, if I come across a movie quote, which I think you remember back for this from LibUX, it was like, I think a Clueless. I'd use Clueless a lot of times, or I would create memes all the time and post them up on Twitter. And I started using this tag, and I can search that tag, and it's like some of them are from Sherlock Holmes, some of them from books, some of them movies. But it was like this. I wanted to do like uxmemes.com, and someone took it already, right?
Oh yeah, it sucks.
But it's interesting here because I think what we're talking about is a great topic for a show, because it's almost like the creative exhaust or the quirky fun that people pursue, and then it becomes something, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, worth talking about, because what I think about is CSS Tricks, Chris Coyier, you know, basically where he's like, I'm just trying to put these things up if I'd learned stuff and it did this, or someone who builds like a specific app or just out of necessity or fun, and how cool that is, and how it's become something more than that.
Right, and CSS Tricks ultimately, I think, let Chris Coyier, he left his job, and now, he was one of the co-founders of CodePen, which is, but you're right, it's just a little passion project. Are you familiar with like code katas, Katas?
I think you've talked about it before, I think.
Yeah, probably to you. The idea of like a code kata, right, is that there is kind of like an algorithmic challenge or a small programming challenge. The more you do it, the better you get. Right? It's a way to strengthen your skill set. User experience designers have a problem in that a lot of UX jobs, especially like UX/UI jobs that you see, require a certain amount of either experience or certification. It gets my creative juices
I think that's
flowing.
great. I think that's honestly where we talk about the next episode, because what I would add to that, and I won't go into detail because we'll do it next episode, is you don't have UX experience. How do you do it? One of the mentalities online is like, one of the fields that needs the most help, and will get you some UX experience, and then also makes your feels good is that nonprofits need tons of help. Volunteer and do some good UX work for some nonprofits that need it, so that's a perfect win-win kind of scenario, right? So we should talk about next time, like not just these creative exhaust or passion projects that go out, but then like getting experience with UX and then doing these katas or doing nonprofit work, and like ways to kind of how can these creative interests or exhaust or passion projects give you the experience you need for your resume as a UXer.
Yo, thank you guys so much for listening to the end of the episode. If you want to help us out, the best way to do it is to star, heart, or favorite this episode in your podcatcher of choice. If you can leave a review, that'd be super nice. Don't leave a bad one. We only want good ones. Most importantly, if you can share on social media and just kind of like get your other friends who are sort of in the biz or kind of even like widely adjacent who wouldn't mind listening to us jabber on for 30 minutes. That goes a long way. You can find these and prior episodes on metricpodcast.com.